Hey guys, so in this video we're going to be jumping into the non-spoiler review of Dragon Ball Super Superhero. If you guys saw my spoiler review, let me know if you like that. If you have not seen the spoiler review and you guys are you don't really care about being spoiled, go check that out. Basically, more than really it being a review, was basically me just word vomiting out the entire plot of the movie. That's basically what my quote unquote spoiler review of the movie was. So in this video, obviously I'm not going to be spoiling anything. So instead of talking about the actual plot of the movie, what I'm going to be doing is talking more about the overarching and general themes of the movie and different aspects of this movie as it compares to, past Dragon Ball movies and basically my thoughts and opinions about how they executed this movie. And the first thing I do want to touch on. Sorry, I'm very tired. It's almost 4 in the morning. First thing I want to touch on is the animation of this movie because leading up to the actual movie release, there's been a lot of people that were very, very nervous and anxious about the animation of this movie. This is clearly the first completely 3D slash CGI Dragon Ball feature film or motion picture or whatever you want to call it. First fully CGI'd slash computer animated Dragon Ball piece of animated work. And I think people were right in being anxious about this because, the first time for any company trying something out, it can be either a hit or a miss. And I will say for sure that there are parts in this movie where you definitely, at least in my opinion, I would have rather preferred to see certain parts animated in 2D as opposed to 3D. I think a lot of the slice of life stuff probably would have worked a little bit better in 2D as opposed to 3D, just because you don't really need that super. I don't really know what to call it, super exaggerated style that the 3D brings to the table when compared to the traditional 2D style. But the parts where they nail it, they really, really nailed it. I mean, really nailed it. I think the main parts that come to mind, without spoiling anything, obviously, is the fight scenes. And I'm not just talking about the main like climax fight. I'm talking about like the little scuffles, like even Piccolo at the beginning before any of the actual plot related stuff happens. Some of the sparring scenes, the fighting scenes that aren't really too serious, like you can feel like you're part of the fight almost. That's how in depth and uh, intimate, I guess, is the word. Involving it is. You almost feel like you're there watching with them, and that's really the whole point I think of why they decided to make it 3D this time. Um, it's supposed to be more of immersive. That's the word I was looking for. It's supposed to be more of an immersive um, experience. This movie is as opposed to past movies. But overall, I would give the animation probably a 9 out of 10, and which is a very very good score, obviously. I will say that while there's definitely parts of the movie that I would have preferred to see in a different animation style, the without spoiling what happens in the climax of the movie, the specific animation during some of the parts of the climax is actually mind blowing. You could tell that they really wanted to nail that part. The animation during the climax, I I wouldn't be surprised if the whole thought process behind making the entire movie 3D was so that they could really capture that last portion of the movie, the climax of the movie in 3D because it looked so good. I would go as far as to say that it's the best looking Dragon Ball animation we've seen ever. That uh, climax portion of the movie in 3D animation, it looked really, really good. Like I cannot emphasize this enough. Um, and I'll tell you guys right now, uh, when this movie comes out in wherever you are in the world, I would really highly recommend going to see this in theaters because it is a must see in theaters. The different experience you'll get between watching this like at home on your laptop versus in a theater, I am telling you right now, it's going to be a completely different experience. This is a movie you want to experience or try to experience at least once in a movie theater. I know for a fact I'm going to go see it again just because the the animation alone I think is a good enough motivator for me to go see this again. But again, animation I'd probably give this around a 9 out of 10. It's not completely perfect because again there were certain parts outside of like the climax of the fight and other fights where I'd probably would prefer to see in 2D, but definitely not too bad overall. The overall story of the movie. Now, again, I'm not going to be spoiling anything. I'm not going to be going into specifics, but the aspect that I really enjoyed of this movie was that it touched more so on I guess slice of life is the best way to say it, but again, it's more immersive than you generally end up getting with Dragon Ball, right? And I'm going to be comparing this movie a lot to the Broly movie because that's the most recent form of Dragon Ball, animation that we have. It was the Broly movie, and then this is the next thing that came out after the Broly movie. But um, when you compare something like this to the Broly movie was obviously more so of a grand um, project, right? The whole plot of the movie, the fact that you're literally talking about the universe, like all the space, like people traveling through space and visit different planets. It's more of a, I think that actually they officially described it as a space opera, whereas this is more so of, okay, we have this issue on Earth. It's The roots are seated in history that we have throughout the Dragon Ball series, the Red Ribbon Army, all that stuff. Um, Except it's blown up to this new level of power, and we don't have the traditional way of relying on Goku and Vegeta to take care of everything because, as you guys know, one of the big things that I think sets this movie apart from a lot of the other past Dragon Ball movies is the focus being shifted to characters that maybe don't receive as much focus or haven't received as much focus recently, in Gohan and Piccolo. They are pretty much the main two characters of this movie, and that's something that we've known for a long time. We've known that. Like, literally, when they introduced this movie, they mentioned, okay, Gohan and Piccolo are going to be the two main characters here. Um, but I think at this point in Dragon Ball's lifespan, I mean, we've had, I mean, the only movie I can think of that didn't do that is like the BoJack movie, because obviously Gohan was the main savior of the BoJack movie. But Goku and Vegeta have become such a deep-seated like centerpiece of Dragon Ball as a whole that making a movie solely based around Gohan and Piccolo is, a pretty big risk, especially because this is the first thing they've done Dragon Ball related in terms of animation since Broly. Again, it's been 4 years almost since the Broly movie released, and that's not to say Goku and Vegeta aren't in this movie because they are. Um, I'm not going to say to what degree because that would be a spoiler, but they are in the movie. But again, the main focus is on Gohan and Piccolo, and I think the average Dragon Ball fan, when they think of Dragon Ball, is either thinking of Goku or Vegeta to some degree. And when you go to see a movie about Dragon Ball, and let's say you should go into maybe like a soft to medium core fan of Dragon Ball will go into the movie expecting to see a certain amount of Goku in the movie because that's what they're used to, right? They're somebody who hasn't really kept up with everything, and you're there to see Goku, the protagonist of the series, the main character, somebody that you've pretty much grown up with and watched fight for 30 plus years now. Um, and so to sort of take the story away from that character that you're accustomed to and shift the perspective to these other characters that have always been there, but we haven't really seen their progression and their stories in a really like when was the last time Piccolo was in the spotlight? Dude, it's been over a decade, over 2 decades since Piccolo's done any like literally the last time Piccolo really had a major role in anything in the animated world of Dragon Ball was probably back during the Majin Buu saga, right? So it's been 25 years since Piccolo's really been in the spotlight of things. Um, so it's nice to see them taking a risk in that way and sort of bringing Gohan and Piccolo to the forefront of the movie. And I think the way that they were able to leverage that really well is the direction they took the story. Because the story, although there is a lot of fighting in the movie, and obviously it's Dragon Ball, there's going to be a lot of fighting. The fighting it was crazy, crazy, like cool, and it just it looked really, really nice. The story also had a lot of slice of life stuff and immersion into what makes these characters the way that they are. And I think that's something that they can get away with doing more with these characters than someone like Goku, because when you think of Goku, you don't really associate Goku with being this character you're going to be like spending a day with at the beach or whatever, right? Whereas I think with Piccolo and Gohan, they've carved out their roles in the Dragon Ball world as not being so much into fighting, but being more so there as supporting characters. And so we're more comfortable accepting the fact that, these characters have, things to do outside of fighting. But then it sort of shifts that perspective because of the way that the movie unfolds later. So I think that overall, the direction they took this movie in terms of the story and the focus being shifted away from Goku and Vegeta to Gohan and Piccolo was pretty much masterfully orchestrated in this sense because it played off of I guess the best way to describe this is it played off of the predetermined notions of these characters that you have going into the movie, and then spins that into making them the main characters, if that makes sense. Um, but again, I think just to wrap this up, I don't want to make this too long because my spoiler review is very, very long. When you think about this movie compared to a lot of the past Dragon Ball movies, like just off the top of my head, one of the movies that people really, really hold in high regard is like Fusion Reborn. You have Wrath of the Dragon, like sort of those later Dragon Ball Z movies. I think those some of the ones that people hold in very, very high regard. When you actually go back and watch a lot of those movies, the biggest selling points of those movies obviously are the final fights, but then outside of those final fights and action scenes, there's really not much going on there. I mean, like the Fusion Reborn movie, I would actually argue is not that good of a movie. It's just, when Gogeta shows up and pummels Janemba for in this like 3 minute screen time role, like that's what the part that people remember. That's the reason why people like the Fusion Reborn movie. I would say that this movie, even outside of the final, climactic battle, like it had its moments where even outside of fighting period, like I genuinely enjoyed watching this, seeing the characters interact with each other, seeing the natural progression of these characters over time, because there is a big time skip in between the Broly movie and this movie. So I think the attractiveness that this movie has over a lot of the other past Dragon Ball movies is the fact that I don't like if I was basically watching this movie at home, I wouldn't skip through half this movie to get to the end and then see like the climax of the final battle, right? I actually do enjoy watching those slice of life moments and Piccolo in his house on the Demon King Piccolo chair, and seeing all the references to different things that happened throughout the rest of the movie, because that adds a lot of life to the world of Dragon Ball. And I think that's something else they did very well in this movie as well, is they paid a lot of attention to detail, and there's a lot of Easter eggs in this movie that I obviously won't talk about in this video, but there's you know there's a lot of things to discuss in terms of Easter eggs, but I would say that this is a movie you can go and watch probably three, four, five times and still discover new things hidden throughout the movie every single time you do that. But I will end this video by saying that I am definitely going to be seeing this for a second time, maybe a third time, depending on if I notice anything different the second time, which I probably will. Like I just said, there's a lot of new things to notice about this movie, but um, yeah, I will say this, and this is how I'll end this non-spoiler review without spoiling anything. I am very, very glad that, sort of counter to how they handled the Broly movie with all the spoilers leading up to the movie. I like that they kept things under wraps a little bit with this one, because if they had spoiled what the ending of this movie was like, I think it would have changed a lot of people's perspectives going into this. And the changing of expectations going into a movie to be super, super high, as opposed to, because I didn't really have many expectations going into this movie because I didn't know what the hell it was going to be about because they didn't spoil anything. So not really having those high expectations, as opposed to the Broly movie where they literally had Gogeta Blue on the poster of the movie. Um, Seeing what transpired at the end of this movie left me in a state of extreme shock, and I'm very happy that that was the effect that it had on me. But overall, this movie was very, very good. I know a lot of people were a little bit apprehensive to this movie coming out. Again, the marketing side of things didn't really do too much in the way of spoiling and like really hyping up people to see this, as opposed to the Broly movie. But I think that was just a different tactic that they took, and I think it was on purpose, right? Obviously, they didn't spoil things on purpose. It wasn't it wasn't like, oh damn, we forgot to show this, or we forgot to put a trailer out showing this in it, right? They did this for a reason. They did this on purpose, and for me, it really worked. So two thumbs up for me. This movie was very, very good. Hope you guys enjoyed this video down below. Let me know what you thought about it, and I'll see you all in the next one.